Hey guys, if you enjoy the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment below about what you'd like to see in the next one. Hey guys, what's up? It's Randy with Trilogy Gaming, bringing you our very first tips and tricks video where we pick a topic and go into depth to show you guys how to get a gaming edge. Alright, today is probably the most important video of all though, because we're going to be covering the settings. And I'm not only going to be showing you what settings I personally use, but I'm also going to be explaining why you should or shouldn't use a certain setting, and also I have some gameplay footage in store, because I didn't want to be just like everyone else and do a boring, best Fortnite settings video where I don't show any actual gameplay and you just assume that I may be good, I might be terrible, you don't really know. So I'm actually going to show you guys some gameplay clips to show you what you're capable of with the sensitivities and settings that I personally use, and I think you guys are going to love it. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Alright, so right off the bat, we're going to talk about the X and Y sensitivity. This is primarily going to be used for hip firing, generally with a shotgun, also potentially with a sub, and then also for building, being able to build a 1x1 fort, how quickly you can turn while building. Those are all things that are affected by your X and Y sensitivity, right? So, as you can see, I currently play on a 6.6. I actually played on 7.7 for a while, and I even tried 5.5. 6.6 I felt like was the perfect middle place, because it still allows you to outbuild opponents with ease. You can build a 1x1 fort very quickly still on 6.6, and also, and most importantly, it gives you a lot of consistency when it comes to using a shotgun and hip firing. The biggest issue with X and Y is you need to be able to consistently hit your shots with a shotgun. Playing on a 9 sensitivity is great for building. Sure, you can build very quickly, but if you can't hit any of your shotgun shots, it doesn't really make a difference. Does that make sense? Also though, keep in mind that I'm someone who's been playing video games my whole life. I'm used to playing first and third person shooters, so if you're someone who's brand new, like Fortnite's your first shooting game, you're probably going to want to go with something a little lower. This is for your typical Call of Duty gamers and people like that. For anyone who's brand new to Fortnite, you've never really played video games much, or at least not shooters, I recommend you start a little bit lower. 6.6 is probably going to feel it's going to feel a little uncontrollable probably. I would recommend you try 4.4 to start with. 4.4 is a perfect entry-level sensitivity where you're able to still build relatively quickly, and it's not going to be a huge issue. You're not able to not turn fast enough to catch people if they start shooting you from the back, that kind of thing. Once you get comfortable with that, you can move up to 5.5, and then eventually once you get comfortable with that, keep moving up to 6.6. 7.7 is also potentially a really good sensitivity. I played on it for a while, but the biggest thing with it was that because I don't use an Elite controller or a Scuff controller, I have to move my right thumb from the analog stick to the A button to shoot or to jump, right? So it just created a little bit of inconsistency trying to make those little adjustments, whereas 6.6 felt just about perfect. I'm able to jump around and still hit my shotgun shots with ease, and also I can do a 180 and start building to protect myself if someone starts shooting me in the back, with no problem. So that's what you should be focusing on, is what sensitivity gives you the most consistency while also giving you the best speed. Okay, so and also on a side note, I know a lot of people talk about the little hashes between 6 and 7 or 5 and 6 and etc. Those little hashes don't actually change your sensitivity at all. Only the main number changes. So 6 and 5 are clearly different, but if you go like 5.5, that doesn't actually give you 5.5 sensitivity. There's no difference between those little hash marks, so be aware of that when you're messing around and playing with your sensitivities. Okay, so let's jump into it, guys. I'm going to showcase some gameplay that highlights the ability of the shotgun. So let's jump right in. Here we go. And you can see there we've made a small adjustment midair, no problem with that sensitivity. Multiple headshots. I think we might have missed one shotgun shot there of all those shots, so you can see just how controllable the sensitivity is. Four guys. And this is a squad match here. I got a full squad right around me, so mowing them down. Headshot. There's still one guy left. You can see how easy it is to make those little slight adjustments even mid-air with the 6 sensitivity, and that's what we're really going for. Alright guys, so we're back. We're moving on to the second sensitivity, which is ADS sensitivity. Stands for aim down sights. This has to do with any weapon that's unscoped, basically any weapon that has iron sights. Anytime you pull that left trigger and you aim down your sights, this sensitivity takes over, right? So mine's set at 0.45. 0.45 allows you to easily follow enemies at medium to long distance while still being maneuverable enough to take down enemies at semi-close range. Anything too close and you should have a shotgun or some close range weapon out anyways, so at really close ranges you can't track your target anymore. But at medium to long range, this thing is like a laser. I mean, you can really track targets, make really subtle movements very, very easily, while still being very, very precise even at medium ranges, and even at that that awkward range where you're just outside of shotgun range but you're really close for a rifle. You can still track your target. It'll be just, you know, you'll just be able to track him, but it's very doable. And that's really the goal. You really want to be able to track targets at medium to long range with rifles, while still being flexible enough to take shorter encounters if you have to, right? And I actually recommend that you tweak your ADS sensitivity a little bit to try different things out. However, I don't recommend you make too big of an adjustment off of 0.45. So for an example, I would not go more than 0.43, 0.42, anything lower than that. You're not going to be able to track your targets at close range. An example would be, say you're in a fort and someone rushes you. If you're trying to shoot your rifle down at them, you will not be able to do it once they come within close range. You just won't be able to track them at that low of sensitivity. So I wouldn't recommend going any lower than like 0.43 maybe. And then as far as going higher, I would not go more than 0.48, maybe even 0.49. Anything above that at medium to long range, it becomes very difficult to track your target because the movements are too large. If someone is, say, skipping or trying to jump around at long range and you're trying to follow their movement, you find that very, very slight movements at high ADS sensitivities, your crosshair just goes flying, and it's very, very difficult to control. And the ideal way to use your rifle is to be able to use it at medium and long range. So we want to maximize that ability while keeping close range a possibility if necessary, but not focusing on it, right? So 0.45 I think is a sweet spot. You can play with it a little bit, like I said, maybe 0.44, 0.46. You find a very, very slight difference, but maybe that's your sweet spot. But play around with it, see what you like. I do want to showcase the potential of a rifle with this sensitivity, so let's take a look at some clips here. Alright, so our first video here, we're going to be using the burst rifle. I am a huge advocate for this rifle. As you can see, this thing is a laser when you have good, when you're very accurate with it, which you will be with 0.45 sensitivity. The thing is just a laser. We got another burst rifle here. Having no problem tracking that guy. Headshot. This is on a medium to long range target. And you can see we make those small adjustments without any issue at all. Very, very easy to control. And there we were perfectly able to keep up with that guy. We tracked him literally perfectly. You also notice I always crouch. Crouching obviously improves your accuracy as well. So just a quick tip there. Go with the sniper first, finish with the rifle. Alright guys, so hopefully I did a good job of showcasing exactly the potential of a 0.45 sensitivity. Get in the game, try it out, see what you think. I think you're going to love it. Let's move on to the scope sensitivity. Now, scope sensitivity is not nearly as important as your X and Y and ADS sensitivity, but if you're someone who likes to snipe a lot, if you're a quick scoper, if you just if you just want to be a really great player, you really need to be proficient with a sniper rifle, to say the least, right? So what I currently use and what I recommend is a 0.55. However, this is only for people who plan on doing some short to medium range quick scoping or quick drag scoping as well. If you're someone who only hard scopes from medium to long ranges, you're not going to need anything that high. You can actually rock a 0.45, same as the rifle. Now with a 0.45 scope sensitivity, you will be giving up your ability to do any kind of close to medium range drag scoping. So you're only going to be a long range hard scoper, but you'll be very, very accurate at long ranges. You'll be able to make those very, very 150 plus meter snipes with a very high level of precision. However, if you're a little more advanced with a sniper rifle, like I am, I recommend that you use a 0.55. 0.55 is the perfect sensitivity, or near perfect, to allow you to quick scope, to quick drag scope, and to still have control over those long range snipes, right? Because that's the main goal behind a sniper rifle, is to be able to use it as a long range weapon. So we want to be able to do both at a high level, right? So I'm going to showcase some clips here showing you both close and long range snipes, and just how controllable the scope is at this level. So let's check it out. So we're going to start off with a close range snipe here. Very quick drag scope there. The sniper rifle is so powerful that if you can control it at close ranges, it just becomes an absolute monster. You can see that we were able to make the adjustment very, very quickly on the fly there. Now we're going to go with a medium range snipe, showing you it's still very controllable at those medium to long ranges. Very, very quickly made the adjustment. Put him down, no problem. Another medium range snipe. You notice we were able to get that shot off before he was able to. We were able to make the adjustments quicker. And this is a very long range snipe. I want to show you guys it's still very controllable at long range. Alright, so hopefully you guys enjoyed those clips. Obviously you can see that 0.55 is perfect for both close, medium, and long range snipes. It really gives you the best possibility between all three worlds. And obviously if you're someone who's new and you're looking for a lower sensitivity, 0.45 would be the place I recommend starting. Alright guys, so we've covered all three major sensitivities, and if you tweak nothing else in your settings, those should be the three things you focus on. Those are by far the most important. But let's jump into some of the other extra things. Alright, so the next option is our HUD scale. HUD stands for heads up display. I've never ever changed this. I don't know why you really would need to change this. You can make it smaller if you want. I've always left it at 1.0, never had an issue with it. It's not too big. So if you want to tweak this, feel free. It just changes the size of the heads up display. Okay, so moving on to the Xbox Safe Zone. This refers to how big the screen looks on your TV or monitor, whatever you're watching it on. If you play on some weird size TV or some weird size monitor or something, you might have to adjust this. All it does is make sure that the edges of the game don't get cut off on the screen. I've never had an issue with this. I've always left it at 1.0, but if you need to tweak this, feel free to mess around with it and you can see what kind of happens. Swap, accept and back. I have no idea what this actually does. It has nothing to do with the actual gameplay. It just has to do with the menus. So I'm pretty sure that all it does is change the buttons. The accept and back buttons are swapped around. But like I said, it has nothing to do with gameplay, so if you want to play around with this, feel free. This is just for the UI or user interface. So yeah. The matchmaking region, I've never actually had to change. I've always left mine on auto, and it's been perfectly fine. This might be something you have to mess with if you play in a foreign country, more so than in the US. But I've never had to tweak it. You can see that you can change it to different areas, and it will go up or down. Like I said, I've always kept mine on auto, never had any issues, so I recommend keeping it on auto unless you play in a foreign country. Invert view, I have no idea why anyone would want to invert their view, so I've never used this. I don't see any need to use this. So sprint cancels reloading. This is something that I know some people actually do use. Personally, I'm not a fan. I find it's way too easy if you start reloading to accidentally start sprinting or move too quickly. And it will cancel your reload. It gets very, very frustrating if you're using something that has a long reload, like a sniper rifle or a rocket launcher or submachine gun, something like that. It's very, very easy to accidentally cancel your own reload. So personally, I keep this off. If you would need to cancel your reload, like say someone ran up on you and you started getting attacked suddenly, you could easily just switch weapons. You could pull up your build menu. You could pull out your pickaxe. There's a lot of different things you could do to cancel your reload. So there's really no need to have sprint on to cancel your reload. It's unnecessary. Okay, so tap to search / interact. This is just a convenience feature that the game offers. This allows you to hit the X button and the bar will completely fill up to open a chest or an ammo box or something like that, instead of having to sit there and hold the button down the entire time. So I do recommend it, but like I said, it's just a convenience issue. It's not a huge deal. Okay, so toggle targeting. All toggle targeting is it allows you to hit the left trigger to scope in, and you'll stay scoped in without having to hold the trigger versus holding it the entire time. Personally, I don't like this, but this is not a big deal whether you like it or not. Completely up to personal preference. I personally keep this off, and I hold the left trigger the entire time I stay scoped in. Once I let go, it releases. So personal preference, up to you. Okay, so auto-equip better items. There is some confusion about what this means or what this does. All this actually does is it allows you to pick up things like ammo, resources, wood, stone, metal, and then extra items like traps, launch pads, that kind of thing, automatically when you run over them, versus having to hit X to pick up every single thing. This has nothing to do with weapons, so if you have, say, a green tack and you run over a blue one, it's not going to automatically switch it for you. This has only to do with resources, traps, launch pads, and ammo and that kind of thing, okay? So you should always have this on. There's not really any reason for you to have this off. And yeah, we'll leave that at that. So vibration is actually kind of a big one. Vibration should always be off for any shooting style games. Any high level player, any pro player, anybody like that is going to have vibration off. And the reason is because when you get into a gunfight and you get hit and your controller starts vibrating, it will actually throw off your aim. Even if it's just a very small amount, those small amounts can make a big difference, especially when you're trying to track somebody. So you should always have your vibration turned off. It's going to feel a little bit weird if you play with it on for a long period of time, but once you get used to it, it's no big deal. The aim assist is on for me. It should be on for any console player as long as you're using a controller. Console is very, very hard to aim without aim assist with the controller. Obviously, if you're using a mouse and keyboard, you would want to have this off. I'm not a mouse and keyboard player, so I can't really comment on that, but I would recommend leaving this on. For reset building choice, this is another big one. This should be left on at all times. If you turn this off, what will happen is, say, for example, you get into a fight with somebody, you build a wall, and then you build a ramp up, and you start ramping up. The next time you go to build again, if you close your build menu, the next time you go to build, you will be left at whatever you were on before. So in this case, it would be ramps. If you're trying to build walls, that can really, really throw you off, right? So you want to leave this on. That way you consistently will pull up the wall every single time you open your build menu, no matter what. And the reason this is so important is when you get into really intense building battles, you don't really have time to think about, I need to move one to the left or one to the right to pull up the stairs or the roof or whatever it is. When you have a consistent, when your build menu consistently builds the wall first, you know ahead of time exactly how many clicks it takes you to get from one thing to the other, right? It's all muscle memory at that point, and that's really what you want. You want consistency. That way when you get into those tough building battles, you don't have to think, because having to think will slow you down massively. And when you play against those high level players, you just don't have that extra time. Any extra time you lose is a good chance you're going to lose that fight. So you definitely will want to leave this on, all right? Turbo building, I recommend always keeping on, but it's not a big deal. You can do just about anything you can do with turbo building with the old style of building where you don't have it on. All this does, though, is it allows you to build, for example, double ramps, ramps below and above. That kind of thing is made much easier with turbo building, so I do recommend keeping it on. Once you get used to it, it's a really nice feature to have when you get bombarded by multiple people or you're trying to build really, really fast. It allows you to do it much easier than just the straight normal click per piece, if that makes sense. Auto material change is another newer feature that's really nice. It's just it just allows you to automatically change from wood to stone or from stone to metal or metal to wood. when your resources run out, right? So this is mostly going to be important both at the very beginning of the game and at the very end, probably. The very beginning of the game, you generally don't have a lot of resources, so this allows you to automatically switch from wood to stone when you run out. Whereas, before this feature existed, you automatically wouldn't be able to build, and you'd have to wait till you switched, excuse me, manually, which could get a lot of people killed. So I recommend leaving it on. It's just a convenience feature, just a nice little newer feature that they added to the game. The show spectator count, this is just personal preference. I keep mine on. If you don't want to see how many people are spectating you while you're playing, then you can turn it off, but it really makes no difference outside of that. It's just a personal preference. The controller auto run is also a little bit of a newer feature. It's one that I actually do not like, though. What this allows you to do is have your character consistently running without you holding down the analog stick, so you just would double click it in the direction. Personally, I do not like this, and I do not recommend it, and the reason being that when you get into intense fights where you're moving very quickly and you're making very subtle movements, it's very easy to accidentally turn this on, and your character will start moving, and it can and will get you killed. It's happened to me a couple times, so I recommend leaving that off. Streamer mode, this is just for people who are streaming. If you have a little bit of lag, this can potentially help you. I don't stream, so I can't comment on it, but if you want to try it out, feel free. And then allow cross-platform parties. This is just a personal preference setting as well. It allows you to play with PC players, potentially mobile players, although I'm not sure if that's actually an option right now. I currently have it off. I don't really recommend, if you're a console player, that you play with PC players. They have a large advantage over console players due to being able to build faster with key binding, etc., with their mouse and keyboard. So I keep it off. You can turn it on if you'd like. Completely up to you. All right, so let's jump into the brightness. I keep mine at 1.0. Feel free to adjust this as you see fit. All this does is change the brightness on the screen. It actually doesn't make that big of an adjustment either. Like, you can go back down to 0.5, which is I believe the default setting, and it's not that much different than 1.0. But you could also manually change your brightness by going into your TV or monitor settings and adjusting it there. So this is all just personal preference. So yeah, the audio, I do recommend you make 2 changes. One at least to the sound effects volume. If you don't lower this a little bit, the sound effects in the game are very loud, and they can kind of cover up things like footsteps pretty easily. And the same with the cinematics volume. I lowered mine just to 0.4. You can tweak these as you see fit, mess with them a little bit and see if you notice any differences. It's not a big deal. It's just kind of an annoyance. I turn my music volume down quite a bit because the music is just too loud in this game for some reason, at least in my opinion. But you can tweak these as you see fit. Not a big deal either way, like I said. With the accessibility tab, this has to do with color blindness. I've never messed with this. I know there are people who claim that this can give you an advantage, but I've never messed with this, so I can't recommend anything. So feel free to try that at your own in your own time. And then last but not least, obviously this is one of the most important, I would say one of the most important settings that you can mess with, and that is your controller layout. I highly recommend Combat Pro. There's really no reason you should be using the standard or the quick builder or whatever it's called. The Combat Pro gives you by far the biggest advantage. It allows you to switch back and forth between not only building pieces but weapons as well. And like I mentioned with some of the other settings, you're going to see any high-level gamer or any high-level Fortnite player using Combat Pro. It gives you a much bigger advantage over the standard, and allows you to do things that will be very difficult with the standard layout, right? The only time you really see people fight this is if you're someone who has been using standard for a very long time, so you're just used to it. Your muscle memory is tuned into the normal way you do things. And obviously it's going to be an annoyance to switch from standard to combat, but I still recommend that you do it. Yeah, you're going to be worse than you were before for maybe a couple of days, depending on how much you play, or a couple hours or whatever. But over time you will readjust, and you will be able to take your game to a higher level than you would have before. So this game is all about making tweaks to get to the next level, right? You get to a point in this game where you're kind of stuck, and you can't seem to get any better. And it's little things like different setting changes and obviously big things like this controller layout scheme that can really help you get over that hump and really take you to the next level. So I highly recommend that you give Combat Pro a try, and I'll leave it at that. So let's move on. So our last tab has to do with linking your Twitch ID account. This is not something I'm going to cover. It has nothing to do with your actual settings. This just has to do with Twitch if you're a streamer. So I'll leave that be. Alright guys, so that's every single option in the settings menu in the game. So hopefully you guys learned something. And if nothing else, hopefully I've given you some insight and some ideas for tweaking your sensitivity potentially. And if nothing else, hopefully you guys enjoyed the gameplay. I do have one last clip for you just highlighting just how effective and how useful Combat Pro is. So I'll leave you guys with that, and hope you enjoyed everything. And let's see you guys in the next one. Peace. Hey guys, if you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment below about what you'd like to see in the next one.